Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today's Monday. It's June the 1st. I am going to do my best to take this slowly today. I have about 100 thoughts running through my brain, and I have a pretty organized argument, I think, that I'd like to make to you. And interestingly enough, I think today's program is shaped by an article I just read at Axios. And I didn't know it was going to be there. This is the nature of this podcast. Like every day I wake up, I have all this background information in my head. I have my personal experience, like many of you guys, you go out there and you look at the world through a certain lens. And then I look at news stories and I look at arguments being made in the public over the last, let's say 72 hours, because it's been over a weekend. And I try to synthesize it into something that has a through line. And today's through line actually comes from a story from Axios. And so it took me a little bit longer today to cut a chunk of a video that they made. And it's hilarious in so much as it's kind of like this staged ridiculous thing. One of the co-founders of Axios sits down with a journalist guy and they talk about what are the three major culture shocks that have changed the way that people feel. Why do people in America right now feel worse than ever before, or maybe worse than in recent memory? And then objectively, the metrics seem to show that life is longer, people are living healthier, people have more wealth, more opportunities, more money, more comforts, etc. And yet they still are not pleased or satisfied with their environment. This reminds me, I keep going back to this framework of the 1990s. There was a moment in the 1990s when this was obvious to people as well. And nothing would captivate it better than the Agent Smith monologue talking about why The Matrix was created. If you guys remember the movie The Matrix, which was groundbreaking at the time, and you had Keanu Reeves playing essentially Keanu Reeves, as far as I can tell, who may actually be able to fly in real life. He's gone through and done kind of superhuman stuff and all of his stuff since Bill and Ted. But if you hone in on it, the Agent Smith character is making these arguments. Hugo Weaver's saying things like, we created a utopia for people and their minds rejected it. It wouldn't take. Nobody accepted that life could be perfect. And so they needed this like sort of gritty reality and so on. Okay. I want to frame that and the discussion that people are disappointed with a couple of a brilliant thought from Steve Friend that I got on Friday, and that is that people continue to conflate the term patriotism when what they really have is nostalgia. And I think if you watch for the next week over on the American Radicals podcast with my buddy Steve Friend, which comes on at noon after my program on Rumble and YouTube and so on, you'll find that he's going to kind of dig into this as well from a very different perspective. He's digging into it as a father with kids who are a little bit older. He told me today he had an analogy about Hulk Hogan and wrestling, and I think it's 100% worth listening to people dig into the same ideas with different words, different mindsets coming from different experiences. Nostalgia and patriotism are not the same thing. Wishing that your country was the way that it was before is not the same as loving your country as it is today. And there's infinite examples of this throughout the media spectrum. So we're not going to run out of material on this even this week if we just kind of like hone into it. And the second thing is that I think is very critical is that there's no political right wing in America. And that has never been more obvious to me than some of the things that are being done by the so-called MAGA influencer types, the media types. They're kind of the same thing. They're all liberals at the very least. And so I'm going to suggest to you that on the right, we have a thing called conservatives. That's a lowercase c. That's people that hold on to traditional values and principles. They are generally speaking Christian in orientation. They are Western civilization, and they are about constitutional rule. If you were to go in, like an American conservative is a Christian constitutionalist. The second thing, just move to the left of that, is capital C conservatives. These people are sold out to whatever is popular, so they're willing to kind of accept a lot more of leftism. All of these people, starting with the capital C conservatives, they are now left of center because there's no political right wing. And so your capital C conservatives are your name brand influencers. They're your Daily Wire types. They're your Fox News. They're willing to sell you neocon. They're willing to tell you that big business is great as long as we're the ones in charge of the big business and we're feeding Israel. We're feeding the military industrial complex. It's totally okay to bring in people who are gay or transgender or drag queens as long as they share our values as though that were a thing. They're the party of Scott Pressler, this kind of thing. This is your capital C, quote unquote, conservatives. Our conservative values, capital C, brand name, trademark. And then you move over to the left of that, and those are the classical liberals. They make peace with MAGA, generally speaking. They will hang out with folks that are inside the sort of capital C conservatives because they're not excommunicated. And they have a lot of the same ideas of sort of free association and whatever is good. And they kind of have a hedonist perspective. And maybe you want to buy a baby and rent a uterus. And so they live in that space. And so you got your Dave Rubins. And they are very keen to tell you they are classical liberals. They're not conservatives. But they're making peace with people that are also not conservatives that they call conservatives. And then you end up with the far left, which is going to be your progressive leftists. And sometimes we're going to find ourselves, if you're on the lowercase c conservative, you're actually going to agree with what the progressives say, in so much as they've got critiques against the system for the exact opposite reason. Right. So they want more government spending. They want more ridiculous nonsense that comes from bigger government and they want more government intervention. We're saying no to the government intervention because we want less of it. They're saying no because they want more of it. And so we end up having the same answer. You may end up with like a Tom Massey where you're quote unquote siding with the Democrat, where you're voting the same way on a yes or no, up or down, yes or, do I want in or do I want out? But you're not actually agreeing with them. You have the diametrically opposite reason, but it still means no to the middle ground of like compromising with your principles. Left doesn't want to compromise on their principles on the progressives. The right doesn't want to do the same thing if you're a conservative. And so we end up in this stupid situation where there is nobody representing what we'll call the right wing of any kind. And it's not even far right. And I think the other crazy thing is that we've turned politics into sport, which I think Axios makes a really good argument about this. We've seen a complete disillusionment of all of the structures and institutions, and they got undermined during COVID, which happened simultaneous to the 2020 election. And then lastly, you have the rise of social media where anybody can say anything, and the barrier to entry to push a bunch of garbage out is very, very low. And so there is a low trust environment when it comes to broadcasting and media and so on. And so people are consuming things that are true, things that are false, things that are unknowable, things that are just complete hot garbage. I tried to watch a documentary on the Dulce base and the aliens that are in New Mexico the other day, and it was super interesting to me. Right when I turned it on, I was like, oh, this is going to be a man with a lisp doing a pet project that's complete dog shit garbage. It's full of a bunch of AI generated images, and there's nothing real here. And I just wasted 20 minutes trying to figure out if there was going to be something good in this documentary. It turns out it's all just nonsense. And so there's a lot of that. And that was on Amazon Prime. That was like a mainstream thing you could go find. There are cool things to say about that. There's a fun way of presenting alien information. That just wasn't that. It was just garbage. So there's a lot of that because the barrier to entry and the equipment to be able to make media is so inexpensive. So we're going to go through a bunch of these things. That's today's program. That's the summary of it. So if you guys are interested, I hope you guys will hit the like. I hope you'll stick around. I hope you will enjoy it and share it with a friend. And I hope you will take some sort of argument away from it. Let's talk about Patriot Protect, one of our sponsors. And today's sponsor, they find your personal information on hundreds of different websites that are listed around the world, and they wipe it off the internet. That's what they do. That's the purpose of this particular service. It's a couple bucks a month to do the basic entry stuff, and you'll save 15% by using my name, patriot-protect.com/Kyle. There's a lot of reasons why you may want to do that. There's 72 different million email addresses that were dumped in a big hacking forum. There have been breaches that have exposed 25 million plus social security numbers and medical records. There are people like the Texas State Attorney General calling these things the largest data breaches in history, but we keep finding larger data breaches. They keep just setting new records because there's more and more records kept online. They're kept in online accessible vaults, and data brokers are happy to get this information. They will sell it to include your location, your daily movements, your personal life. Anybody who wants to buy it can get it. Anybody who wants to click through a website and deal with a bunch of garbage can see it. The FBI has confirmed that they are actually buying some of this stuff as well. They're tracking Americans where they would normally need a warrant. Again, we don't have a government protection because they just decided they can get an end around. There's money in your information. If you guys want to protect your information, the best way to do it is to get it knocked off the web. And you can do that, and you can make yourself infinitely less accessible to criminals and scammers and stalkers, and maybe even the government in this case, if they want to go the end around with no warrant. And this is why we use Patriot Protect in this house. You guys can do the same thing. you said, not very expensive, couple bucks a month. We are on an annual subscription, so it ends up being like, I think, less than $100 a year. Don't quote me on the numbers. It's a fire and forget solution. Once you do it, you just kind of recognize that you get less robocalls, less email scams. I've got public emails and I've got a public persona, and I still am dealing with far less than most of you guys. So check them out. Link in the show description, patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Evaluate the services they have. See if one of them makes sense for you. Save yourself 15% on an annual subscription and click through it. That's how you do it. If you want to find any of our other sponsors, they're always listed there. There's a link to them. It will take you to our locals page. And when you go to the locals page, you will be able to click through any of those things. Appreciate all the sponsors that are part of the program. And that's how we monetize what I'm doing here today. I'm not paid by anybody. There's nobody influencing my thoughts other than myself, sometimes the audience and the people and the experiences that I have around me. So thanks for all of you guys being part of this. Here we go into today's program. We're going to be making essentially a three-part argument, which is going to be centered around the American 250th celebration of freedom, which is now just collapsing on itself. All right. And I'm trying new things all the time, like little small things to see if something will work. One of the things I'm trying right now is a thing called the Rumble bot. So if you guys are playing along with us live, or if you think you might join the show live, if you're in the live chat right now, you'll notice that there's a thing called @the_Rumblebot hanging out in our locals chat. Now, YouTube, you guys can always clip things. There's an opportunity for you to be able to set up a clip. And if you want to pull a clip, by all means, I should say this at the beginning, but if anybody ever wants to clip a piece of the show because it means something to you, whether you agree with it or you want to lampoon it or you think it's funny or whatever, knock yourself out. By all means. I don't copyright this in any meaningful way. I don't mind distribution. I added this Rumblebot to our chat because you guys can type in !clip if you were watching over on Rumble, and it'll clip up to, I think, 60 seconds of the show, and it'll save it for you so you can review it later. So if it's something you want to share with a link over on social medias and you're like, oh, this is something I want to do, cool. You can do that. It also lets me know if there's something that I've said that is interesting to you so I can kind of go back and evaluate what is it we're talking about here and what's hitting home for people. So anyway, I wanted to tell you that for those of you that are watching, if you see it run across the screen while you're watching in the aftermath, that's what's going on. That's why we have this bot. !clip, CLIP, will give you a clip of the show in real time as you're watching live. So that's that. All right, let's go and get into a couple of things that I think are truly sad, and I think they are representative of where we are sitting today. And this story was front and center at CBS News. Egg freezing popularity increases among young women to preserve their fertility. This was by Leslie Stahl. It was filed yesterday in the evening. It's an updated story from 2025 because this is an ongoing story in America. And the story is women are not getting married. They are not having babies at a young enough age. And they are worried, can we hold on to our fertility for a longer period of time? Fertility rates in the United States are near historic lows. One reason is the sharp decline over the last 3 decades in the number of American women having babies in their 20s. This actually seems like a really simple question, a simple statement of the problem. Women are not having baby in their 20s. So the answer is women need to have babies in their 20s. You see, you could just say, what seems to be the problem with fertility? Women aren't having children at a young enough age. Oh, what would be the solution? Women should have children at a younger age. Well, what does that mean? That means that they won't be able to have the career they wanted. Yes, that's correct. But then they won't be able to be captains of industry. Yes, that's correct. But they won't be able to compete with men head to head in the industries where they might be able to do that when they're in their 20s if they're not having babies. Yeah, that's correct. That turns out. This is the conservative position. The conservative position is you should have babies when you're young enough to have babies because your body is built to have babies at that time. If you want to be someone who's older and go and not have babies at that point and you're done raising them and you want to have a career, I don't think any men are particularly mad about that. This doesn't even seem complicated to me. What's amazing is I was sold this bill of goods and garbage when I was growing up. I was born in the beginning of the 80s. I was born in 1981. So if many of you are older that listen to the show, that's fine. Some of you are younger, and you'll recognize that there was a specific period in time, and it started before I was born, where women were encouraged more and more. It was still pretty common for moms to be, either have a kind of like part-time career if they did have one at all, but to be, generally speaking, home for their children. But it became less and less common to the point where it was expected that if somebody meets me today and they ask me about my wife, they say, "What does your wife do for a living?" And the answer is she raises children, like women have for literally thousands of years beforehand. That's new. What does your wife do for a living in the scope of human history? They said, as we first reported last year, freezing embryos for in vitro fertilization, or IVF, has been possible for decades, but freezing unfertilized eggs was a tougher science challenge that usually a patient had cancer or other conditions that threatened fertility, and so they did it only in sort of very specific circumstances. Egg freezing for non-medical reasons became accepted practice 13 years ago. I'm always really weary as a conservative person when someone says this is relatively new. Sometimes that's good. Many times it's bad. Many times it changes something that was actually just fine because we're trying to tweak something that didn't need to be tweaked. Just like I might find out that this Rumblebot thing is not great. I don't know. We'll find out. Before I start paying for it, we have a free version of it. 13 years ago, the demand has skyrocketed. Hundreds of thousands of eggs are now frozen, raising big money, big hopes, big questions. A lot. You notice they don't mention that there's like all these ethical questions, including people like gay men being able to buy frozen eggs and the transaction where we are now selling human tissue. That seems like something we should be worried about, or human embryos, or implanting them in places that they shouldn't exist. There's a lot of questions that are not being touched here. They're just talking about how it's increasing in popularity. And so we're talking about normalization in this article. Could egg freezing offer women what previous generations only dreamed of, a chance to put that dreaded ticking biological clock on ice? I'm going to just tell you what's true about this, what I believe is true about this. No, you can't fight biology. You can't stop time. You cannot do any of these things. Every single effort for mankind to play God has resulted in tragedy. And it turns out, because I've got some clips of James Tallarico, who's going, he's getting a lot of attention. He's running for Senate in Texas. And a lot of attention is being paid to his fake version, his heretical version of Christianity. And I listened to a clip of him earlier where he was speaking at the State House in Texas. And when he was doing it, he brings up Genesis. And he brings up the Hebrew word for God and the Hebrew word for the Spirit of God, and how the name for God is masculine and the Spirit of God is feminine. And therefore, God is non-binary and encompasses both masculine and feminine. And it's like, no, you actually are doing the original sin, just like I see in that article. This is why lowercase c conservatives have a position that's pretty easy to represent. You just go, okay, well, what was the original sin? It was eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? So man, gets the apple from his wife, from Eve, eats the apple. And what is the actual sin there? We always say that the sin is pride. The original sin is pride. What is that pride? It's rivaling man's capability to be that equal to God. If you're a leftist standing in the middle of the Texas State House and you are making the argument that God is non-binary, you are literally, and you're quoting Genesis to do it, which is amazing. You're literally doing the thing that the first sin was. You are doing the sin of pride. You are attempting to define God in terms of man's language. Is that not prideful to assume that you would have the ability to define a limitless creator in terms of man's limited ability to understand things? We do our best on a regular basis, but to make conclusions from the original Hebrew words for, masculine and feminine and God the creator and then God the Spirit, to take that and twist it into something, that's pride. That's what it is. It's the same thing as trying to play God, where you're saying, oh, I'm going to be able to freeze my eggs. I'm going to stop time so that I can do all the things. You can't do all the things. Everybody knows that. We even have this concept in business as you get sort of medium sophistication, your first introduction into what it is that makes people make decisions financially, and when they're spending and they're using their time and you're allocating resources, it's a thing called opportunity cost. And we all have to deal with it. Opportunity cost is quite simply that when you make one decision, you have to forego other decisions. It's a reality of all things. I bought food today. Because I bought food today, I can't buy ammo with that same money. I also can't buy a sports car with that money. I can't do anything else with the money except allocate it to the thing that I did. Now, you could buy the sports car, and then maybe you can't afford food and you've made poor choices. You could buy things that are interesting to you and fun. You could pay money for video games, and then you have to get on food stamps because you can't afford to actually live. That might be a choice you do. You take the limited amount of money you have and you do something that's not smart with it. But either way, once you spend it, the opportunity cost is you have cost yourself the opportunity of spending it on something else. Time is no different. It is one of our most important resources. What do they say? It's the most valuable thing you have. Time. You can never get it back. Once spent, that's it. You think you can trick God? You think you can trick time? You think you can trick genetics and biology? Because you're going to freeze eggs? All of these things result in all kinds of other problems. By the way, have children in your 40s. Do that the way that I'm doing. I have a 2.5-year-old right now, and I'm 44 years old. It's exhausting. I wouldn't trade it for the world because I want to have this child, my 4th child, my youngest. I love her. She's infinitely frustrating. She is my most challenging child, probably partly because it's the oldest I've ever been as a parent of a young child. I'd do it again. We would have another child this year if that was possible, and I don't know if it is. But there's a reason when I was talking to one of our previous guests about why is it that you can stay up all night and party in your 20s, stay out to bars till 4 a.m. and then get up in the morning at 6 a.m. and turn around and go and perform and be okay at it. Why is it that you can study all night and pull off all-nighting, college studying? It's because you have this energy level when you're younger that is geared towards raising children, and children require you at all hours of the night. My son requires me at least 10 o'clock at night. My other kids will intermittently make noise all the way through the night. And at about 5 o'clock, the noises start again. There's maybe 4 hours of silence in my house. Best case scenario. Sometimes it's 5. It's pretty good. This is a reality. Leslie Stahl cannot make that go away because you are going to somehow stop the clock with freezing eggs. But that story tells us so much about what's going on. We're trying to do better and experience more and squeeze more out of life. And I think we're about squeezed out. And I think a lot of people are recognizing that as well. We're seeing people conflate this thing called patriotism, which would be your love of country, your pride in country, with nostalgia, the pride and the love of the country that we used to live in that doesn't exist anymore. And I think we made that argument in a pretty compelling way last Friday, which, by the way, we got kicked off from YouTube, and we don't know why. And I appealed that. So for those of you that were watching the stream on Friday and you watched it suddenly end, it ended potentially because we were talking about AI data centers, but I don't really know why it ended. It just disappeared. And then it came back on after I challenged them, and they said, yeah, sorry, we made a mistake. Yeah, we kicked your stream off. Yeah, we eliminated the hundreds of people that were watching at that time on YouTube. But, our bad. That didn't used to be a possibility. Our way of broadcasting, our way of sharing information has changed dramatically. I'm going to show you the story, then we're going to watch some of the videos from Axios. This story is called The Rattled Generation, a Unified Theory of the American Movement. And there are two people who are going to be in the video that I'm going to show you in just a second. Jim Van High, or Vandehei, I guess. Looks like they may have actually mispronounced his name or misspelled it. And the other guy's name is Mike Allen. Mike Allen is the co-founder of Axios, so he's one of the original guys on here. Mike Allen's an interesting dude. I tried to read up because I was like, hey, who the hell is Mike Allen? I kind of want to know who these people are. And all I read from it is what I can read in between the lines. There's very limited information about him. There's no Wikipedia on Kyle Seraphin either, so I don't hate that per se, but he seems like he's prominent enough. He's 61 years old. He's the co-founder and chief editor, executive editor at Axios, the former chief political reporter for Politico. He wrote the playbook. Let's see. New York Times has some quotes on him. The early life and his personal life are the things I'm always really interested in. Why? I want to know what lens someone brings to it. His father was a conservative writer named Gary Allen, spokesman for the John Birch Society. He described his household as normal and apolitical, which was a contrast to his father's flamboyant. It's funny to call somebody a conservative icon with a flamboyant personal public persona, but that's what they said. He went to school, graduated in 1986, double major in politics and journalism. Father died the same year. This is my favorite part. Personal life. A somewhat reclusive figure, Allen was profiled by Mark Leibowitz, who reported that many of his friends did not know where he lived and that none of them have ever been inside of his apartment. A colleague knew him in his earlier life, described him as living among mounds of newspapers and a couple of pieces of cheap furniture. I don't know why I found that fascinating, but I did find it fascinating. And I find it very fascinating to learn that somebody has this kind of like 61 years old, as far as I can tell. There's no woman in his life. He doesn't have any children. That is a pretty, historically we would be like, oh, that person's probably gay. If you looked at somebody who was in their 60s, they were a single man, never married. I think it's becoming more and more common. I don't know when it started becoming common, but it is becoming more common. I have friends that are like that. They're not gay, as far as I know. They don't seem to be. And that life just kind of hit some people. And some of it has to do with this egg thing where women are like, well, we can wait. We don't have to make a decision now. And men are told the same thing. Get yourself squared away. Get a career. Get a nest egg. Build something that you are willing to bring somebody into instead of marrying somebody and building it together. And there may be arguments for both sides of it. But I'll say this. The minute that my wife and I had stable employment with healthcare, we started having babies. And it was way too late. I mean, it was in our late 30s. I wish we had done it sooner. But more and more, I think we bought into this thing. The rattled generation. After years of talking to hundreds of CEOs, elected officials, social scientists, and ordinary Americans, this is our best take on how things stand in our country right now and a guide to how we got here. What's crazy is they spent years apparently talking to CEOs and elected officials and all this other kind of stuff, and they basically came up with the same things that we've said here on this podcast without any particular deep thought into it. And they came up with the three following situations. Number one, the rise of social media has dramatically changed the environment for all life, which is something I think we've done as far back as our first call-in show, which is now back almost 2 years ago, something like that, year and a half ago. I posed a question to the audience that listens and subscribes to our locals channel, which you can do at kyleseraphin.com if you're so inclined. You can do the same thing over on YouTube, by the way. You can become a channel member. Financially support us, etc. Like, I queried the people that were most interested in what I was doing as a podcast. And the answer was universally, given a button that I could push that would take us back to a pre-internet society, would you do it? And in our very non-scientific, listener-only, self sort of selecting group of people, it was a 100% penetration of the answer, yes. Every single one of us would have said, yep, including me. And I make a living right now talking to people on the internet. I would go without it. I would go without social media in a heartbeat. I think it's one of the worst things that's ever happened, even though it's lowered the bar and it's made things like impossible to suppress. It's also made it so much easier to lie to people. It's disconnected people at a level that is beyond comparison. In the same way that we were talking about Ted Kaczynski the other day and pointing out that he was seeing that the rise of industrialized society and technology is not serving man, but in fact actually creating this dystopian image. This is pretty much universal, that people experience it and go, yes, it is not helping us. It's not making our lives happier or better. We're not more fulfilled, even though we have more things. So that's one thing. They came up with social media. And again, I think that you don't need to be a genius to recognize that analog life was superior to the life in the digital world. And the reason that is because for people who have lived in both, and I did, I lived in the analog world for 16, 18 years. I remember getting my first internet connection. I remember my first high-speed connection when I went to college. I can still tell you the song that was the first MP3 that I ever downloaded. So I spanned both sides. I didn't grow up with no internet and no technology and computers. I saw the original ones coming in, the Apple IIe, the Apple IIgs, et cetera, coming in, the personal computer into the home when it was really getting common. I typed on typewriters. I had a Commodore 64 that I worked on for a little while. I remember taking a freaking driver's ed class and getting a point knocked off my license I mean, I'm like with a Commodore 64 that I rented from Blockbuster. So those are things that are very familiar to people who are a lot older than me, who are in their 50s and their 60s right now. You're hearing that and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember when that happened. We remember the first word processors. We remember the first dot matrix printers and games and so on, when all that stuff started coming out. So I remember analog. And if I had a choice of giving my children an analog childhood or not, I would give them an analog childhood, and you probably would too. So social media, the internet, has radically changed time, like a once in 100+ years experience. Second thing, the second thing that they hone in on was COVID. Shocker. But the debasing and the movement of the goalposts in real time is a real problem for most people. They said, oh, we had this thought and you turned around and radically shaped it, and you showed us that you were doing it, and you showed us that you didn't care if we found out you were doing it. So COVID and the sort of things that people woke up into while that was happening, if they were not paying attention previously, dramatic. And then lastly, they go into and discuss the radicalized sport that politics has become. That we've moved from cheering on sports, and that politics was a topic that you, generally speaking, didn't discuss in polite company. It is the default position that people will have political views in complete random and happenstance conversations with strangers now. You would never have done that when I was growing up, and when most of you were growing up. That would not have happened. You wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have brought up religion. It was just assumed that everyone had it, because when I was born, like 90% of this country was Christian. Some version thereof. I love that our chat is now recognizing, like, oh, you're a millennial. I think technically yes, but at the end of the day, there's a sort of mid-generation there that I think is more accurate. They call it Xennial. I'm far more like my Gen X compadres. I'm far more like the baby boomers than they are the people that are at the end of my generation that are 10 years younger than me. Like a lot. I'm at the tail end of being a millennial. So I don't speak for anybody. I just speak for myself and my own personal experiences. I had a brother that was 9.5 years older than me. So I grew up at 5 years old, 6 years old. Like, he had Van Halen going on in the, I was very aware at a much younger age than many people were, because my dad was in radio. He was in media. So I saw all this stuff and I ingested it, and I was a pretty precocious kid, as you guys can imagine. Let's get into this video. The 3-part argument these guys make. And then we have, how does that affect the American Freedom 250, which is falling apart? And that's what today's, the thumbnail was. The 250th celebration for America. There's nobody who wants it except the people that are trying to turn nostalgia into patriotism. That's the argument I'm making for you. All right, before we jump into the video here, which I will play you, just make sure you guys are liking over on Rumble if you haven't done so already. It boosts us in the leaderboard. We consistently perform. I think we were in the mid 30s out of the top, all the streams on Rumble. We're in the top 50 almost any given day. And it's because you guys like it. It shows that we have real interactions, not bots and garbage, not fake views, which a lot of people are getting. Same thing over on YouTube. You guys are great about that. Make sure you hit the like if you enjoyed something, if something here strikes your fancy, and share it with a friend if you're so inclined. Subscribe to either or both channels, and you can always hear things over on Spotify at KyleSeraphinShow.com. If you miss it, you'll hear an ad from the Spotify folks right now, most likely. One of the funniest things about the Spotify ads that come in, and they're across all the audio platforms, is that apparently it's Fox News, Mark Levin, Dan Bongino are all buying space. Daily Wire has bought space to advertise on our podcast for themselves. So that's really funny to me. It just shows you the people that we're talking to that are interested in this program would have been their audiences, and are also laughing about them now that they're getting out there. So here we go. This is part 1, Axios. I'm going to stay on screen.
It's never been a better time to be alive. We're healthier, wealthier, and longer living than at any point in the history of humanity. And yet poll after poll, conversation after conversation shows that most people feel like crap, and they feel more hopeless than ever about the future. Nobody in a position of power is explaining why and how we got here. We're going to.
This is actually not that mysterious. Okay, so hold on. The best part about this,
20-year daisy chain.
I want to go back real quickly and show you this visually on the screen. Look at this. Okay, so this is called Axios Behind the Curtain, and it's sponsored by Accenture, which is a huge company. I just found that fascinating.
20-year daisy chain of events that's taken America from can-do America to now a rattled generation. And it's not their fault. They understandably don't trust the institutions that built up that optimistic America.
And it hits us everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just a political problem. It's a cultural problem, a societal problem, a business problem, a personal problem. And I don't think you can actually fix a problem until you dissect, like, how the hell did we get here? Why is it that if by most measures it's a great time to be alive, most people feel they don't feel that way? It's like they're too unsteady. They're too uncertain to think that things are good or that things will get better.
For a lot of people, they are not experiencing the reality of a safer, wealthier, longer living America. So let's unpack how we got here and how we can fix it.
It's never been a better time to be alive.
All right, so that's a great argument, and I think they're correct. If you looked at it on just numerical, like on metrics alone, life expectancy, the availability of food, the comforts that we can buy for the cost that it costs, all these other things, like people, they're looking at you and they're going, why aren't you happier? And it's because we've lost something that's kind of intangible. I've got a really good little info op here. I've got to make sure I find where I downloaded this thing. It's this woman named Sargon. What is her name? Batia Sargon, something or other. Let me just find her real quick here. And I'm doing this stuff on the fly, so bear with me. Maybe I didn't download that, in which case I need to go download this. It's pointing out how Americans should theoretically have all these things, all these, maybe I just put it on the screen here and I didn't actually download the, Give me a sec, because I definitely have this in my timeline. Anyway, it's a woman arguing for the most, I don't know, communistic thing that you've ever heard of. She's suggesting that we should do a check from the government to be able to bail people out because, you know, Mr. President, they love you and they just want to support you. They just need a little help right now because your policies are basically not effective and you didn't do the thing that you promised. Give me 2 seconds here because I know I had this thing sitting around. There it is. All right, I'll grab it. I'm gonna rip this like in real time right now because this clip is it makes such an interesting point, and I think this has everything to do with the lack of patriotism that people are feeling on the 250th. What is her name? She's Batia. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you about Batia too in a second here because once you see, you're like, oh, okay, well, you have a perspective, but who are you? Here's who she is. All right, let's do the video first since I've queued it up here. She's going to tell you that things are really expensive. Some people are experiencing that moment where even though all the metrics say everything should be good, they're not living their best life at this moment. And so they're disappointed. And so this lady has a way to fix it. Yes, of course, she's a Zionist. And we'll go into kind of her background in just a second here as well. I'll let her make her argument. This is on News Nation, which has presented itself as being kind of like a centrist type news outlet where they're going to be able to present both sides of the argument and they're going to be fair and balanced, like kind of like what Fox used to claim. But they do tend to suck up to the administration quite a bit. And I don't know if they started that way, but they've certainly gotten to that point. So here we go.
Mr. President, your supporters are hurting. People who voted for you 3 times, who would walk over Legos covered in hot coals to vote for you, are broke. Some are skipping meals. Others are buying canned chicken in bulk because that's all they can afford. The cost of food and gas is just so high. People are finding it impossible to pay for their kids' after-school sports once they fill up the car with gas. People who support you and support the war in Iran, who were willing to pay a little more to make sure our grandkids don't have to live with the threat of a nuclear-armed terror state, who were willing to pay a little more for the possibility of reshoring our great manufacturing base with tariffs, well, they've paid all they can. Some are expressing anger and frustration. They feel that they voted for you to bring down the costs. Others are just quietly skipping meals. And contrary to what some in your administration keep saying, it's not just vibes. Inflation is eating up wage growth, and then some. Gas is $4.50 a gallon as we head into the summer travel season. The producer price index is up 6% as we head into grilling season. Savings are at an all-time low. 13% of credit card balances are now over 90 days delinquent, the highest since 2011. You keep saying that the stock market is doing great, and that is true. But the gains of the economy and nearly all consumer spending are concentrated in the top 10%. Everyone else is broke. You keep saying that gas will plummet when Operation Epic Fury is over, and there's a new memorandum of understanding on the table. But even if there is a deal, it will take a lot of time for gas to come down. And in the meantime, the American people need something to get them through the slog. Your supporters need help, Mr. President, and they need it from you. We brought in $200 billion in tariff revenue. Couldn't some of that be shared with Americans struggling to put food on the table?
All right, that's the argument being made by the capital C conservatives. And my point to you is that there is no political right wing, because that represents, I don't know, like a Republican position. Mr. President, couldn't the government just help people by giving them money? Couldn't we just give money that we took from people and just give it to the government? Couldn't you write checks out of a tariff, which you're already obligated to give back to the businesses because of court cases that have shown that the tariffs you did were not actually done in a constitutional manner? Let's just write checks to people and see if we can buy them out of the problem. Where have we seen this before? Oh, like the previous Trump administration, when they were literally sending out checks with Trump's name on them for COVID. This is what communism will look like. I mean, this is how it ends up being there. It gets more and more obvious every day. And so you wonder, well, like, who are these cheerleaders? Is this a conservative lady? She's on this, like, she's making this like sort of heartfelt plea to Donald Trump, which is just performative. I mean, that was acting. All of that was acting. She's standing on a screen on a studio stage, talking to a camera with nobody there. As someone who does talk to a camera with nobody there, trust me, I can tell you, that's what acting looks like. And her name is Batya Ungar-Sargon. How many Batya Ungar-Sargons did you grow up with? Apparently she was born the same year I was, in Philadelphia. But she went to high school in Israel. And then I started reading some of this stuff and I just went like, oh, of course she's a freaking liberal. The liberals have taken on the branding of capital C conservative. She sits on CNN and regularly argues in favor of the administration, which we're told is the most conservative in my lifetime and all this other kind of nonsense. But it's not. She went to high school in Israel. Do what you want with that. She's of Jewish descent, is what they claim here. She's the daughter of Julian Ungar-Sargon, who's a neurologist. I'm just reading from her Wikipedia piece. Earned a bachelor in English from the University of Chicago. Probably no slouch. She got that in 2004, which means she graduated college the year that I should have graduated, but I didn't. Then went and got a PhD in English from University of California, Berkeley. Those are pretty aggressively liberal credentials, I would say. Her dissertation, Coercive Pleasures, the Force and Form of the Novel, 1719 to 1740. If there was ever going to be a useless thing to write a thesis on, it would be the force and form of the novel between 1719 and 1740. Literally, nobody gives a shit. Nobody. Not even the person who had to read that dissertation gave a shit. So she has a PhD in that, in English, which means that she's probably very articulate and she's well-read and she's probably read a bunch of things that are deeply nuanced and have shaped her thoughts. She examined, among other things, the elements of how rape and colonialism contributed to the development of modern English fiction. That's what coercive pleasures are. It's a little euphemism for rape. If you were going to say, hey, what do you think a leftist thinks the American novel was crafted by? Would you say rape and colonialism? Because you probably would be correct. That's the person that's out on CNN representing what they think is your position. That's the person that's arguing on your behalf for the sort of common sense conservative position. This like wild liberal. As a journalist, she began in news analysis. No idea why you go from being a PhD in English, maybe because there's no money in it. And she started documenting the rights of undocumented immigrants and liberal perspectives on Israel and American Jews. Do you want to read it? I didn't make that up. Here it goes. Her career began as a journalist, a news analyst, reporting on topics, the rights of undocumented immigrants and liberal perspectives on Israel and American Jews. So you have a Jewish lady who went to school in Israel talking about Jewish issues. It's the most narcissistic, like it's the most obvious thing that I see from people on the political left. It's like navel gazing to the extreme. Oh, you're a transgender person and you don't know what to do with your sexual anatomy? Maybe you could spend your whole life talking about your sexual anatomy and writing about it and thinking about it and making other people talk about it. Are you completely narcissistic and only interested in your own sort of navel? Would you like to look down at your belly button and then just talk to your belly button and your Johnson all day long? Cool. You too can be a transgender journalist talking about transgender issues. This is a real thing that I continue to see. You're like, what's most important about me? What would other people like to know? Maybe I should talk about me the most. Maybe I could find a thing about me and just make that my job. How that exists, that never could be a real position outside of the world of social media. I don't think. This guy's going to make the argument. Here we go. What are the shifts? This is point number 2, the second shock to the system. Remember, the first one was that we had social media and that people weren't feeling it. So here we go.
The gap.
Okay, 3 big shocks.
The gap between the reality and how we feel is the story of our generation. A 3-part shock tells that story. 1 is the rise of social media.
January 2007, what dropped? The iPhone.
And not just the iPhone, X or Twitter back then is starting to take off. Like suddenly you could say anything, read anything, do anything at scale in public for free. Like that had never been real before.
And it was opportunity, as we saw with Politico and like the incredible businesses that have been built. So with all that opportunity, why do we have this generational wound? One reason is, think about what happened starting in 2007. You had the scandals in the church. You had a financial scandal, Epstein. Everything that people were seeing from the places that they once trusted was collapsing.
Shock 2 was COVID, which I think is vastly, vastly underappreciated as a reason for the way people feel the way they do today. Just as we were starting to think through social media,
Right.
just as people were starting to think about the healthy way to use their phone, they get told that they have to sit inside their house for years, that they have to shut down their business for years, and that they have to go into their room and the phone that they chose to use, now they had to use it to do school or to do work.
The in-person connections that are wired to feed us, like this goes back to the savannah, right? Was suddenly gone.
savannah?
We didn't have the casual after work gathering. We didn't have people hanging out at work.
I got kind of a problem watching these guys do this. This feels very scripted, doesn't it? I don't know. I have conversations with my friends. When I talk to Steve Friend, it's a little bit performative for whatever it's worth. When you guys are seeing the Friendly Fridays that we do, they're a little performative because we're working through information and we know that it's a conversation that's being presented for other people. This one is like cut, edited, and I've never once talked to another man and been like, listen, when I'm seeing something, I don't have a way to do this. And I don't have a way. They'd be like, dude, are you fine? Are you okay? Is there a bug in your shoe or something? Is something biting you? Like, what is wrong with you? You have jock itch? Like, I don't know what I would accuse my friends of if they said, but like, stop it. This is not natural. It's weird because when Steve and I do it, we're doing it over the internet. Again, we're talking about this. Like we're having like a COVID experience. When you're in person, if it's that fake, I know that you're creating something for me. But they're right. You had a bunch of people told that even though that their businesses were essential to them, that they were non-essential to everybody else. That you were not a valuable member of anything. I watched a clip of this female comedian who reminds me in some ways, she kind of looks like this Batya Sargon character. Pretty, generically, like not real clear what ethnicity she was. Slim, cocky, up-talky, performative. And this female comedian, and you guys can find that on my, you can find it on my X feed if you're so inclined. She's making fun of a man because she's saying, don't you think like women need to be in all the things? Women need to be in more of the STEM industry. They need to be in all the science-based. They need to be doing all the jobs. And the guy's like, do they really? And this dude, it turns out, worked in concrete, which is a pretty masculine type, kind of rough, kind of a bummer of a job. I've worked with concrete enough to know that like it sucks for your lungs. It's exhausting. It destroys your hand skin. It makes you uncomfortable after you're done with it. It leaves you in like a layer of dust. And so he recommends. She was like, well, fields should women be in? And he was like, concrete. And she was like, do you need a PhD to do concrete? Well, it turns out there are people who have PhDs in concrete, if you don't know this. As a guy who's taken some material science classes when I was in college, there are literally men who spend their entire life at the PhD level focusing on the minutia of the formation and structure of concrete. Like, that's a real thing. 100% it is. But she doesn't know that because she probably has a master's in, I don't know, the rape and colonialism of the English novel in 1740. So this woman is saying this piece, and she was like, well, what fields do you think women should be in? And the guy is sarcastic, and he says they should be in mining. Don't we need more women in mining? And she was like, do we even still mine? We have so many people that live in a physical world that are willing to just throw shade and knock the things that underpin their society. They think that technology and AI and data centers and the internet and corporations that do social media and allow for the communication of like corporate executives, like those are real jobs. And you could get rid of all of those things. There's this argument going on that a bunch of like Indian immigrants to the United States are making. If you didn't have any Indians, your technology companies would fail. Do you know who can't eat technology? Any of you. Nobody alive right now can eat from technology. But I guarantee you, if farmers stop farming, if ranchers stop ranching, it's over. Like, it's so, if chickens stop having eggs, if people stop picking up chickens. You remember we interviewed Enrique Tarrio here, and he said he was a chicken farmer in northern Florida, and that he was like pulling out like millions of eggs a year. like that guy stops doing that, people die. Some Indian guy stops coding and Google doesn't work the same way, we're going to be fine. And the reason I know we're going to be fine, the reason that all of us know we're going to be fine is because guess what? We've done it before. Anybody who's lived before the 1990s remembers that there was a time when we didn't have this crap and it worked out. So interesting that these guys are kind of honing in on these issues. They've cleared the way and pointed out that technology came in at us in a way that we couldn't handle it. And then we ended up with COVID telling everybody that they weren't actually that important and that we were willing to shut you down.
Okay, wait a minute.
That's not the clip of number 3. I thought I grabbed piece number 3. Let's do the third part of this Axios. By the way, if you guys want, just let me know in the chat and I will post the 15-minute conversation. You have to go find it. I'll put it over on Locals. It'll be at KyleSeraphin.com.
And then shock 3 was kind of the aftermath of both of those, which is you have a once in 100-year shift in politics, technology, and the way we consume information. In politics, it's just gotten meaner, it's gotten nastier, it's gotten more in your face all day, every day. In technology, you have artificial intelligence, which you and I probably think will be as big as electricity or fire, but certainly will be as big as the internet. And then you have how we consume and disseminate information, the world that you and I live in, with people just basically shattering into all these little information bubbles that were often self-reinforcing, self-soothing. Those 3 things unfolded in that same 20-year period.
And it's understandable that people say, whoa, stop. And that's what I hear a lot about AI as I talk to people around the country. Like, they recognize the opportunity, the innovation, cures are going to come from it, riches are going to come from it. But people say, I didn't ask for this.
I'm going to pause for a second here. We got polled on Friday, and likely it was because of discussions about AI and the fact that the federal government is saying that people can be now a new thing, a new domestic terrorist format, a new threat to national security, which is an anti-technology violent extremist. So this is being classified by our intelligence agencies right now. And so, okay, fine, that may be a real thing. I would suggest to you that it's just the ice cream cone creating more opportunities for the cone to lick itself. It's government fulfilling its own mandate of growing government. But we got taken down over that, most likely. I couldn't find anything else other than maybe they didn't like my impression of Indian people, which, it's not positive. I don't much care for people that have non-American culture, non-bacon cheeseburger national culture that do not come here and integrate. I have a neighbor next door that owns the home next to me who's Indian. And as far as I can tell, they're like pretty traditional Indian, but he has actually assimilated in a couple of things. He cares about his property. He was out the other day pressure washing his driveway. That's a really American thing to do. It's like, I own this thing. This thing means something to me. The way that it presents me in the world is important. And so I'm willing to pressure wash, spend my time, weed the front lawn, pay for a gardener, paint the house, like upkeep matters because the physical property that I own also kind of represents me to the world, but also that there's like a certain amount of pride that I have it. That's not the case with a lot of people. I've seen plenty of people that let their homes go. They come here, they buy something and then they let it run down. It becomes garbage. And the inside of it, you're like, oh my God, what have you done? This guy seems to have pride of ownership. That's a pretty American assimilated kind of mentality. Even if he's not a Christian, and I don't know if he is or not, honestly, he at least is looking at the way that people behave in America, and he's behaving the way that his American neighbors would. So I don't hate that. But we're pointing out something on the stream on Friday, and they take it down. And what I didn't tell you guys is that 70 to 80% of Americans are skeptical and or anti-AI data centers. It's a wildly unpopular thing to hold on to. And so when you see an Air Force retired general coming out of the military industrial world and pointing out like, well, it's a threat to national security, you're a problem. It's the mainstream opinion of Americans. If we're going to start censoring mainstream opinions, which is what we're all worried about, this is 100% what we're talking about in this thing. The world is better than ever before. We have all these great opportunities. The technologies allow for like better living in so many ways. And yet you've told people that they have no value, that their opinion is meaningless. Everybody can share something, but none of it means anything. And by the way, technology is coming for you. See, these guys are talking about how it's going to make a bunch of people rich. Nobody asked for it. Yeah, you stopped asking, does this make human life better? And this is going to be the same problem that we have for the 250th anniversary for America. Did anyone say we need to celebrate America's 250th birthday? Because America's so great right now. Because we're so excited about it. You only get it to come up once. It only shows up at 250. But did we celebrate the 150th? No, we celebrated the centennial, the bicentennial, and I assume a tricentennial if we last that long. But this 250th, it's kind of like, it's a big number, but does it mean anything? Do we really love this country at this moment where every American can say this is what America is about? Again, I showed you the video on Friday of the spirit of 1776 at the bicentennial, where Americans knew what America was about and they felt good about it. And that may have been a mixture of patriotism and nostalgia, but today we are so out of balance with that. We are almost all nostalgia if you are quote unquote patriotic. And very, very little actual patriotism. Because what about this country do you love right now? What about it is serving you in a meaningful way and making you feel good about it? And I think it's less and less the case that we love what we see. We loved what we were. And we don't have it today.
And I don't think they asked for the politics part either. And again, like for younger people watching this, once upon a time, people didn't talk about politics all the time. It's not healthy.
It was part of a healthy, balanced news diet.
It's not even supposed to be interesting. Government is set up to be slow. Politics is set up to be slow. It's not supposed to be sport. It's not supposed to be entertainment. It's not supposed to be rage bait, but it's become that. And think about social media, you think about technology, and it elevates. These algorithms elevate the loudest, craziest voices on both sides, and it creates this false perception that everybody's lost their mind, that everybody's mean, when in fact, it's just not true.
What did we say during the 2024 cycle when things were getting really contentious? I said, go out and meet your neighbors. And the reason I suggest people do this thing is because your neighbors, they turn out, they're real people. They're not on the internet. They're not some social media handle that's saying shitty things to you. They're just another person on the other end. And when you go meet those people and you see what's going on, you recognize that they're human beings, that you have far more in common than not. Again, my neighbor next door to me, he chose to live in the neighborhood that I live in. He cares about his driveway. He has a pressure washer, and so do I. And he's got 2 daughters, and I've got 3. And we have that in common. We have a lot in common, it turns out. And on a face-to-face basis, we probably don't have a lot of discrepancies. We probably have similar values because of where he is and where you are. And then you go out there and you see what this politics cycle is, and it's disgusting, and it's mean, and it's gross. And I'm on Team Massey, or I'm on Team Trump, and there has to be a difference between the two. Can I not want what Donald Trump said he was going to do? Can I also not like Tom Massey because he said he was trying to make that happen? And he also was on Team Trump until Team Trump wasn't Team Trump anymore? It's so funny. I was never a MAGA guy. I just looked at it and went, that's a fake brand name. That's fake and gay. That's people who are not like me. I don't want to be part of that coalition. I want to try to lean that thing, whatever that is, closer to making us being interested in patriotism and less nostalgia with just like celebrating that we used to be an awesome country and we're not. Let's go to the Make America Great, Make It Better Now, so we can have it great again. That would be good. Like, the actual words of it are brilliant. It's a great marketing ploy. But like so many things that Trump does, it's covered in gold. But it's not gold underneath. It's just turds that are gold coated. And then they're telling you how amazing it is. It's very frustrating to watch it because I'm not trying to get far away from these things. And yet you're going to put people like this, and I'm going to end up agreeing with a guy like Ali Velshi. You guys know this guy? Here he is. Here's Aaron McIntyre. He's an Indian born in Kenya who moved to Canada, moved to the United States, and became a U.S. citizen in 2015. I'm going to play you the clip about this. He has deep unease about America's 250th anniversary. He's like a hard leftist and a kind of a global type citizen. He's not a bacon cheeseburger nationalist. What's crazy is I agree with him about what he's saying on this. Again, we can agree for very, very different reasons. And in good faith, we would recognize, like, oh, yeah, of course we agree because we disagree with what's going on, but for the opposite reasons. Here we go.
In 1 month, America will mark the 250th anniversary of its founding. Like previous anniversaries, there is a deep unease about this. I feel a deep unease about these celebrations to which I am invited to mark the 250th anniversary of our so-called democracy.
The so-called democracy. Well, it's not a democracy, guy. I know you're new here. I know you've only been here for 11 years as a citizen, but like, it's not a democracy. Constitutional republic. And what does that mean? It should mean that we have constitutional principles, which you guys seem to freaking hate. And a lot of that has to do with stop bothering me. Stop trying to put the government into my business. Everything about the political left is putting government into business. And it turns out that's what MAGA's about too. They're super happy. What do they cheer on? The big, beautiful bill. Spending more money than ever before, building government programs to solve government problems, which they should be just getting rid of government. We don't have a republic anymore. We haven't for a long time. And there is no political right wing in America. It's just very obvious to me as I sit there and look at it. And so, of course, people are not psyched about doing a 250th birthday for a country that is a shadow of what it used to be. It's a shadow of what it was in my own lifetime. And I'm not that old. If I'm hitting middle age right now, the people who are children never saw a great America. If you're in your 20s and 30s, well, like early 30s, like, what do you look at? You're looking at it and go like, I don't remember it being that awesome. I watched a lady who said, I'm a millennial. I think she was younger than me, probably 8 years younger, something like that. She's like, I'm a millennial. My life involved seeing the Twin Towers go down on a television set that was wheeled into my elementary school. So that tells you I was in college by the time that happened. So she's quite a bit younger. She watched that. Then 20 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq and notifications of people dying and a bunch of our money being spent up over there and a fixation on terrorism in this country, first foreign terrorists, then domestic terrorists, the Patriot Act. If you saw the Twin Towers go down when you were in middle school or you were in grade school, then you don't remember as a like a thinking person ever seeing what American freedom looked like. And I got to see like a little piece of it. I remember being able to give my loved ones a hug and watching them go down the jetway to board a plane because you could walk right up to the gate. Do you guys remember that? Because that's what America Great Again would look like for me. It would look like it was affordable for a family to take a flight and your loved one could park in front of the airport on occasion. They would. Remember? They would park there and they would just leave the car with the flashers on. They would walk through, they would check a bag, then they would roll right up to the jetway. They would high five you as the boarding started and you would walk on. You would see parents that were dropping off their child who was underage, hand them to a stewardess. The stewardess would then take them straight to their seat. They would ride in the seat on the airplane. They would come back and then their grandparents would receive them on the other end from a stewardess. You remember? That was American freedom. That was in my lifetime. That's gone. There's no even thought that that's what freedom would look like. Go watch Love Actually, which was a movie that my family watches almost every Christmas. It's one of my wife's favorites. It's after 9/11, and you still could do that then. You could still go right up to the edge. That was American freedom. Meeting your loved ones when they came, not because they came out of the airport and they went to baggage check and they went through some garbage and a TSA molestation. No, they literally got on the plane, walked off the plane, and the first people they saw when they walked into the airport where you were was you, the people they were coming to visit. We don't have that anymore. So I sort of agree with this guy, Ali Velshi, even though I don't like it. I'm deeply uncomfortable about it. Imagine people thinking the same thing, hating the idea that we're celebrating something that's not real, and then being like, yeah, it's your fault. You guys are a bunch of losers. That's what Fox News is selling. Here's Rolling Stone. I think this is appropriate to cover a Rolling Stone article simply because we're talking about music. We're talking about a festival. We're talking about a concert celebrating the birthday of America. And their article is entitled, "What the hell is going on with Trump's Freedom 250 concert?" CNC Music Factory rapper Freedom Williams posted an expletive-adorned rant. Morris Day said it was a no. Young MC dropped out. Vanilla Ice says he's still in. The lineup announcement of musicians who are supposed to perform at the Great American State Fair, Washington, D.C.'s National Mall, as part of the Freedom 250, has sparked chaos amongst the performers. Morris Day, leader of the legendary band The Time, remember Jungle Love, promptly announced that the performance by his funk ensemble was a no. Others have followed suit. Martina McBride said Thursday that they want to clear the air. She will not be performing. So today's thumbnail showed you a series of people that dropped out. You got Poison, not in. Milli Vanilli, looks like they're half in. Martina McBride. Laura Ingraham is really upset about that on Fox. And imagine the sadness when you sit there and she's doing the same thing they always do. We're conflating nostalgia and patriotism. And she's going to go and blame it on a radical leftist mob. How about the people like me that are like, I would never be interested in going to this. I'm not going to watch it. I wouldn't want to be part of it. I think the best thing that can happen at this point for the 250th celebration that Trump's doing, he needs to go ahead and do what he wants. He should give a speech. And on the front end of it, it should be the national anthem sung by Alexis Wilkins, who nobody knows other than she's the girlfriend of Kash Patel. I think that's actually probably inevitable. I think she ends up being part of this just because, of course, she will. And then I think he should give a speech that nobody will care about except the people that love MAGA. And then the last thing that should happen is that she should sing Lee Greenwood, Proud to be an American. She should do a cover because that's about what should be happening. So there we have it. That's what should come down. That's my suggestion for the White House. Or you could cry about it on Fox News. Here's Laura Ingraham doing that. We're not living in the same country if this hits for you.
And rather than lining up to perform for our country on our 250th, now they're out dissing the big day, either due to pressure from the woke mob or because they just hate Trump more than they'll ever love America. A number of key acts that were set to perform on July 4th have now bowed out, all citing the same kind of lame excuse, variations of wording, that the Freedom 250 concert is somehow too divisive or too partisan. So Martina McBride, who've always liked her, the Commodores, loved them. Young MC, bust a move, Morris Day, whatever. Even the uber-patriotic Bret Michaels, he bowed out, claiming the concert has evolved into something much more divisive than what I agreed to be part of. Oh.
By the way, she didn't mention CNC Music Factory, which I looked, they had like 4 or 5 hits. I've never heard of any of them except the one, and it's awful.
Come on, guys. You're better than that. All of them are better than this. You know, talk about Poison. Oh. Of course.
Who wrote that awful line, by the way? Talk about Poison. This is the same fake gay shit that we just saw the guys from Axios doing their staged conversation, except she's doing it in monologue. Again, this is all acting. You know, you guys can tell.
Industry rags like The Hollywood Reporter, they're ecstatic about the cancellations. They claim the acts dropped out because of political backlash, but look, they didn't have the guts to report the truth. The woke mob canceled patriotism when Donald Trump was first elected in 2016. Frankly, patriotism, red, white, and blue, a lot of American flags, it triggers them now. It's weird. So much for artistic freedom. That's dead too.
I don't know why people write these monologues. I don't know why this is a thing, like to have a scripted, pre-written, staged by somebody else, like somebody else's words. This is someone just said a boomer laugh track. I just saw that over in the YouTube chat. Yeah, it's as weird as watching a sitcom with a laugh track. I remember somebody reflecting about this. I don't remember who was telling me this, but they said, I don't like shows with laugh tracks because you're listening to laughs of the dead. Because half the time, if you go and you watch something that's from like, I don't know, like the 60s or 70s and there's a laugh track in there, you go watch like, I don't know, the Brady Bunch. Like those people are dead. That studio audience is already dead. Some of those people are gone. You're listening to the laughter of dead people. That's about how realistic, that's about how animated Fox News looks to me when I look at that. I don't know who watches it. I don't know why you would pay to watch it. And I don't know who would be like, well, Laura speaks for me. Do you know anybody else that speaks like that anywhere? Do you ever have a conversation with someone who's like, talk about poison? That sounds like something out of a shitty 90s movie. That sounds like a woman who's talking to Mrs. Doubtfire in a Robin Williams flick from the 90s. That's what it looks like to me. And I cannot believe that it's actually there. All right. Should we get a fun take on this? How about we go to Bobby Sauce? I got to have Bobby on pretty soon, too. Maybe we'll have him on next week. Here's Bobby Sauce roasting Donald Trump's response to essentially the cancellation of his big day. Here's the New York Times covering it. Donald Trump urged, they didn't cancel patriotism when Donald Trump was elected. People recognized that they were nostalgic for something that didn't exist anymore. I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. Donald Trump urges canceling the Freedom 250 after the artist dropped out. This was his idea, by the way. This was his baby. Then he blew it. This White House can't even like schedule a concert. They're overpaid third-rate artists. That's actually probably true when you looked at them. Most of them were kind of mediocre. They weren't top-tier acts. So he should just save the day by being the most watched man in the world, the largest audience, bigger than Elvis. If your reference point is who's got a big audience, Elvis Presley, you're probably 1,000 years old. You're probably the president of the United States, too.
Yo, did you see this Truth Social from Trump over the weekend? Brother, artists are getting the yips having to do their performance at the America 250, so I am thinking about bringing the #1 attraction anywhere in the world. The man who gets larger audiences than Elvis in his prime. The man who some say is the GOAT, Donald J. Trump. The musicians are backing out of the America Freedom 250 event. There was like 8 artists or something, and half of them dropped out already. So Trump's idea is instead of artists playing music, he's just going to speak. Great. But dude.
Like, what is different? What is different in this sort of narcissistic space? Person who makes their career out of their genital confusion. Person who parlays their love of Israel and all things Israel to become an Israel journalist. And guy who only likes talking about himself, getting up and canceling a bunch of people to sing so that he can talk again, as though we don't get enough Donald Trump. There's unlimited amounts of Donald Trump. I think the reason that Donald Trump loved to be in politics is because he could throw a rally and a bunch of people would show up and listen to him. There would be thousands of people, and he just loves the audience. So yeah, let's do it. Let's just let him talk on the National Mall, and I'm sure some people will show up and they'll think it's great, and people like me will not care, and people like you may not care either, and people on the left will be super upset about it. They'll be triggered that he even had the audacity. It's just like, this is the status of where we're at right now. We're in a declining, non-patriotic nostalgia for something that doesn't exist, and the guy who tried to sell us the idea that we were going to get it back, he just turned out to be a fraud, so we'll just keep doing it.
Look at this. Dude, the first rule of being the GOAT is that you don't call yourself the GOAT. You know what I mean?
Fact.
Case in point, the GOAT.
The whole GOAT term is never going to be something that
That's Michael Jordan.
I ever will
you guys
get
are listening.
high or low about. You know, it just doesn't exist with me. It is a empty comparison. Is it absolutely never find that the true answer to that question.
It's a circular conversation.
It's just going to keep going.
But aside from all that, does anybody else think that this is just like a funny example of how sloppy the government is in general? And I'm not even going to put this one on Donnie himself. If you basically have a blank check, you're using taxpayer money to pay musicians to do music, and they don't even want to do it, why is that? It's because they didn't even tell them what it even was, allegedly. They didn't even tell them what they were going to be performing at. And it's not like these were like the top tier artists in the world anyways. It's like you got a bunch of like has-beens and who cares that are going to perform at this. It's like, oh, let me go to the National Mall and see fucking Vanilla Ice. Oh, Milli Vanilli's on next guy. Who cares? But this is how incompetent our government just is. It's like they can't even explain how to get musicians to do music and get paid for it. They don't even tell them what it is, and then they back out. Or maybe they did tell them, and then the PR was so bad. I don't know. But either way, it's dumb. Like, and then for Trump to come out and say, I'm going to replace all these musicians by me speaking. What is that? I don't know, man. I don't know. But, you know, like Trump or not, doesn't sound lit.
What is the potential audience of people that live in the general Washington, D.C. area, or people who are willing to travel to the Washington, D.C. area to go see Donald Trump speak again? You could tune in to Fox News at any time. You could put Mark Levin on and find him calling in. You could turn on the Daniel Bongino show and get access to Donald Trump. You can get unlimited amounts of Donald Trump anytime you want. So maybe we should have him celebrate America's birthday, which would just be about himself, which is exactly what Donald Trump would do, which is why he calls himself the GOAT. If you don't know the expression or the acronym, it's the greatest of all time. If you self-refer to yourself, if you reference yourself as the greatest of all time, yeah, that's the number one rule of being the GOAT. You just can't ever say that you are.
Imagine if you were going to your favorite concert and they were like, next up, Neil deGrasse Tyson's going to speak for like, I don't know. It's not the same. You can't do music with speak. You can't. It's not the same. Anyways, I don't know. And look, the level of MAGA slop you got to be inhaling to think that, look, dude, you like Trump, fine, but you got to say Trump is a better president than the founder of the fucking nation. Better president George Washington, like the founder of the freaking nation that led his own battle troops into war. Better president than that? I don't know, dude. I don't know.
The reason I like Bobby is because he shows the insane amount of frustration that regular people have. Bobby's a regular dude. If you ever met him, you'd go like, yeah, that's how, if you started dealing with the environment that we see on social media, a regular reaction to it is like, this is really, really dumb and super frustrating. Do you want to know what's really frustrating? When you had somebody come out and say something to you, like, we're going to go fix this. What do they say? Oh shit, I still have it. Number 3. I'm do a Bobby sauce. Number 3, end inflation. Make America affordable again. Seal the border. Stop the migrant invasion. Carry out the largest deportation. Get people out of here. End inflation. Make America affordable again. When America is affordable again, then you have that moment where the top 10% and the 80% are closer and they have a similar experience. The same thing that Sargon Batia, what's her name? Batia Ungar Sargon. What a awful. I should look it up again. I should not misquote her name. Sorry. Batia Ungar Sargon. I know those words are in there somewhere in some order. There they are. They're in that order. Batia Ungar Sargon. She did a crying request. Mr. President, can you please deign to give money from the public coffers that was taken from the people and then give it back to the people that are suffering? Can you do communism, but in a loving way? Right? So she did that garbage. They had 3 top priorities. Deport the bad people that don't belong here, solve the problem, and then that'll make America affordable again. Check it out, ABC News, top 2 stories today. You ready? This is how I know we're not voting our way out of this thing. We already tried, and it didn't work. DHS says most immigrants won't need to leave the United States to obtain a green card. A new directive has prompted concerns from immigrant advocates and lawyers. They were worried that people who came here, that were trying to stay here permanently, like let's say they were on like, I don't know, a student visa, or they were on some sort of like visitor visa, or they came here and they lied about what they were doing with their visa and they were on an H-1B visa. Like the deal is you got to go home to get a green card. You want to become a legal permanent resident, an LPR, you got to go home. You got to check in and you got to get in line. You can't just like try to parlay the fact that you're physically here already and say it's like the person that went up to the desk, right? They go up to the desk trying to buy a ticket, or they're waiting in line for something, and they're like I'm not trying to skip the line, guys. I just want to go to the front and ask a question if I'm in the right line. So they go up there and they go, hey, listen, am I in the right line? Like, I want to do this thing. And they go, yeah, you're in the right line. Go ahead and get to the back. And they're like, you know what? Since I'm already here, can I just skip the line because I'm already here and I already skipped the line? Just ask a question. Can you just give me favored treatment because I'm right in front of you and you don't want to be rude? We'd want to slam that person. If somebody skipped the line at the post office and they were like, I just want to make sure, like, do I have the right postage on this letter? And they're like, no, you don't. You had to get in the line and buy more postage. Well, can I just buy it because I'm already here? I already skipped the line. Okay, that's what they're trying to do. So the whole point of it, and people were cheering this on, if you were like a conservative type person, you're like, yeah, send people home. Make it not an incentive to lie on your visa. Make it not an incentive to come here as a tourist and then actually start working illegally and then try to get in here and get a green card while you're physically here. That's not the rules. Don't be an F1 student visa. Don't be an H1B. Go the hell home. Try to get a visa. Try to get a citizen, like try to apply for the green card the way everyone else does for legal permanent resident status and then come back. Fine, let's do it. We're all okay with that. DHS says you're not going to have to probably do that. Department of Homeland Security is downplaying the impact of this policy directive that prompted concerns among immigrant advocates, aka illegal immigrant advocates and lawyers earlier this year. CISA, this is the United States, it's CIS. It's United States Citizenship and Immigration Services issued a sweeping policy directive requiring that most temporary visa holders and humanitarian parolees, those are my favorite, the people that came here, shouldn't have been here and come out, they got paroled into the country. So there's a lot of your illegal aliens that got here that got some sort of legal status. They won't have to return to their home countries to apply for and complete green card applications. Advocates say the new directive was presented as a blatant policy. It would affect foreign nationals with pending U.S. filed green card applications. But Friday, Homeland Security said the news policy will result in some aliens who did not merit discretionary benefits ultimately applying with the Department of State overseas rather than USCIS in the United States. But it will not prevent any alien from obtaining a green card who legitimately and properly qualifies. So we're going to cut caveats, and you lost again. If you were cheering on like, hey, we're going to make it harder, we're going to do the thing we said we were going to do. Nah. How about another ABC story at the lead here? This is a good one. White House economic director downplays Americans' economic anxiety amid high prices in gas and inflation. Kevin Hassett said the real income is up despite higher prices and inflation. This goes to point number one.
It's never been a better time to be alive. We're healthier, wealthier, and longer living than at any point in the history of humanity. And yet poll after poll, conversation after conversation shows that most people feel like crap and they feel more hopeless than ever about the future. Nobody in a position of power is explaining why and how we got here.
Yeah, well, we're not in positions of power. And by the way, neither is that guy and neither is the co-founder of Axios. But it turns out we do know why we got here. We got here because we stopped deciding whether or not the things that we were doing were serving people. Did they serve people? Did they serve human happiness? Were they making things better? Or were we just trying to find out if we could do it? And did it make some people in a better spot? Did you enhance American freedom or not? And the answer, generally speaking, is like, I don't think so. I don't think we have. I don't think we've enhanced American freedom in any meaningful way. If you want a great example of it, we voted for a guy that said he was going to start no new wars. I'm the president of peace. We did entire montages. They are very, very damning when you listen to what Donald Trump promised on the campaign trail. And then you end up here, live update from CBS News, first thing this morning. Iranian state media say that they have halted talks with the United States, that the attacks were, another attack on key waterway is coming. We are going to go back and fight over the strait. We've got people in the MAGA cheerleader squad that are super excited. They don't seem to understand. We got Mark Levin. He said, this is our generation's responsibility. And this is actually fairly important. Mark Levin, who has no military service, who claims the valor of like a grandfather, apparently, who from the numbers I saw, looks like it probably couldn't have even been his grandfather. The story doesn't make any sense. Who has a child who is of the right age to go and serve. For all of his patriotism, for all of his talk, for all of his life, liberty, and Levin. The dude cannot help but do hypocritical bullshit. I'll say this. I see a lot of these media talking heads, and what skin in the game do they have? Like, what has Laura Ingraham ever done for America? What has Alexis Wilkin done for America? What has, let me say her name again, sorry. What has Batya Ungar Sargon done for America? Like, what have you done? What are your credentials? How many of you showed up, put your hand in the air, and said, yeah, I'm willing to put my life on the line? And under what circumstances? Does it make you a better person? No, it just gives you an opportunity to say, I've done this thing. If I tell somebody else that I have an opinion about this thing, at least I've lived it. At least I've done it. I can speak from intelligence. I know a ton of veterans that would not sign up today and would not recommend their children go in. Some of those guys had like kind of a premature moment where they're like, oh, it's going to be a lot better. That's why Donald Trump is there. Pete Hegseth is making it great again. And then you're like, oh, we didn't really want to do another war like this. Here's a guy with no skin in the game telling you that this is a generational responsibility despite actually having none of the will to pick up that responsibility.
I will stake my reputation here and now on the fact that they will continue to pursue nuclear weapons, ICBMs, they can reach our country, fund terrorist organizations, and never surrender the revolution to the very people and governments they seek to destroy.
If you're just listening, what you're not seeing is that Fox News for Life, Liberty, and Levin are showing Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu shaking hands.
I know this is hard to hear. I know this is unpleasant. I know I may be in a minority today.
You may be in a minority. He's literally reading this off paper because he's such an old bird brain that he's not even able to look at a freaking teleprompter like a person who does this for a living does. He's doing what Laura Ingraham does, but he's doing it by reading down and like reading to his own navel, which is an appropriate way for him to be looking. Also, if you guys are watching, look at the size of the freaking American flag on this guy's lapel. Doing anything he can to get past the sort of like claims of dual loyalty or the fact that he gives a shit about Israel first and all this other kind of stuff, which are all the, I think they're valid claims. I think that's what he's proven about himself. You want to show me that you're a fake? Put a 3-inch flag on your lapel that fills the entirety of your lapel to act like you're patriotic. Again, this is nostalgia masquerading as patriotism.
I know I will be called a warmonger.
Yes, you are.
I will be called an Israel firster.
You are.
I will be called a unpatriotic Jew.
When he said that, a little part of him died.
I've been called a lot. My faith is under attack. I get it.
What is that again? What's your faith?
But that's the way it goes. The fact is that the Iranian regime, it wants to destroy our country, our civilization, our way of life, indeed our lives, and it wouldn't give it a second thought. As the president has said, if they had gotten a nuclear weapon, they would have used it against us.
Yeah,
he's 100% right. Every generation has a responsibility to the next generation and generations thereafter. This is our generation's responsibility to our children and our grandchildren and our country and to civilization. We've come so far, much further than any president has been willing to go, to confront this gravest of threats. Despite all the opposition he has faced, all the political attacks, the midterm elections, the price of a gallon of gasoline, this president, and only this president, has brought us, the free world, the civilized world, much of which is dragging and kicking or sitting on the sidelines. He's brought us to the point where we truly have the capacity to put this to an end.
Yeah, except we don't. Except it's not happening. Except everything that Mark Levin says is his own bullshit. That guy is 68 years old.
At 68 years old, it is my responsibility and my generation, even though I'm too old to fight, and even though my son is young enough to fight but does not fight, even though my son is not in the military and works in media, just like me, we perform this feature. And we go out and we do this thing.
The United States and Iran trade strikes rather, because there's no ceasefire. There's a ceasefire that we're actually shooting through. Amid talks to end the war, this is NBC News reporting it as of this morning. The U.S. military said the strikes are in Goruk. Is that really a name? That's fun. Goruk. And the island of Kashim. We're in self-defense. Iran says it was targeting the source of a U.S. strike on a telecom tower because nobody agrees on what the facts are, and we don't really know. So there's fighting. There's a trading of munitions while we have a ceasefire, while we're working on talks to end the war, which hasn't ended. Got it. Good to go. And you know how I know it's not good? This is how I know it's actually like worse than Mark Levin will even say it is. Marco Rubio is now asking the UN to solve this problem. Okay? Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is rolling out to let you know that the UN was created to solve international conflicts just like this. And they need to get to work. It's time.
And I think it's a real test for the UN, right? As something that functions that can solve global problems. What is the purpose of the UN? The UN was supposed to be a place where you could peacefully resolve global conflict. Right now, you have a country who is unlawfully, criminally, and illegally taking possession of an international waterway and blowing up commercial vessels and putting mines in the water. I don't know if people appreciate like how outrageous this is, how unacceptable it is that any country would fire and try to sink commercial vessels or put mines in the water. Both of these things are illegal. And so we're going to take it to the UN, and we're going to...
Oh, now we care about international law. So that's good. All right, good to go. Understood. Guys, if you're watching on Rumble, give us a like. Same thing, YouTube. If you're listening, you may hear an ad from the audio folks. Comes from Spotify, and that is KyleSeraphinshow.com. If you have not subscribed on Spotify, you get audio and video. You can see Mark Levin's decidedly younger than 68-year-old looking face, if you think that, although our chat seems to disagree. You can also read some of the stuff that goes on the screen, like the chat and so on. Check it out. What does Donald Trump say about all this stuff? Are we getting a deal? You guys believe it?
With Iran. So what does a good deal look like for you?
Well, first of all, there's no deal that's good enough because the media will cover it. We're making a great deal. We're going to make a great deal. Or we'll just go back and finish it off militarily. But this would go faster. It's probably better on a humane standpoint. There's something nice about it also. You save a lot of lives. Whether it's the other side or not, you save a lot of lives. But we're close to a very good deal. And if we can make it good, otherwise we just start up with the Department of War, as we call it.
What do we call it?
And it's been very successful. You saw Venezuela. It was a one-day win, and this is really a win already. We've defeated their military, essentially defeated their military. I would rather get a deal because we can open the strait immediately upon signing. The one guarantee that I have to have is that there will be no nuclear weapons. They've agreed to that.
Cool. Does that sound like we're getting a deal? Does anybody think that? I thought we already had won. We've already won. It's in the past tense. It already got done. And so, like, we got that going for us. It doesn't feel like it to me. Call me crazy. We're going to get a great deal if we have a great deal. Otherwise, we're going to use the Department of War. That's what we call it. We're going to call it the Department of War. It actually is called the Department of War. We changed the name to actually being the Department of War, but like we call it the Department of War. He's just a rambling old man at this point, and it's sad. It's sad because people wanted something and they're not getting it. And we keep trying to hope our way through it. And the only thing I can do is messaging. Here's a great version of messaging. We started off talking about numbers. The numbers say that things should be great. The metrics theoretically indicate some things are better, like for the economy at large, but not for people. People's experiences are not there. They're not in line with, again, this is what the Axios piece says. Everybody theoretically should see the most freedom, the most health, the most longevity, etc. And they don't feel that. They're constantly saying otherwise. Well, the problem is because if you were to take it on aggregate, you get there. But there's a lot of people that feel left behind by this. So let's sell it. Let's sell MAGA, which masquerades as conservatism. Let's sell it to people who are conservatives, right-leaning. And let's see if we can get a gay man married to a gay man with a baby that they took from the uterus of some woman, using all the things. We're going to sew it all together from the beginning of the show, the frozen fertilized eggs and in vitro. We're going to put together the fact that there is no political right-wing representation. And let's see if we can sell it to you in this sloppy, sloppy shit from a guy named Dave Rubin, who apparently decided to do the most unintelligent thing you could do if it mattered. Doesn't. He went and did a debate on that Jubilee-style podcast or Surrendered or whatever the hell it is. And yeah, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how it works. There's people that sit in a circle and they all want to come in and debate. We saw Glenn Greenwald do it. He did it very successfully. He came in with information. He came in with solid points. And then he came in and demolished the people around him because he knew more about the story and the question and what he was arguing than those around him. The way that the structure is that they get to make a claim, they being the one, and then the 20 come in and debate him. Imagine going in with claims that just sound good because MAGA. Having no information at all, no debate prep whatsoever, and then getting owned by a bunch of progressive leftists. This is what happens when you have no facts and you can't argue it, and you're basically going on, I don't know, like the vibes of an old man who now just rambles.
What is one main metric that Donald Trump has made better off since he got in office? An example would be GDP, unemployment, inflation, etc.
Right now, first off, the big beautiful bill was just passed last year, and it's kicking in now, right? It's kicking in now. So we're going to now see results of that, like even the tariffs. All right, so let's do tariffs. Are you for or against tariffs?
I'm against the universal tariff. So what's the main metric that he made better off?
What?
What's the main metric that he made better off? GDP, unemployment, inflation? Do you have any idea?
Listen.
I don't think you do.
Hold on. So you're arguing that things economically were better under Joe Biden
At the end of his administration, absolutely.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of how?
Yeah, GDP growth was better off. Real median wage growth was better off. Inflation was better off at the end of his administration. Unemployment was better off at the end of his administration. We had the worst year of job growth in the past 4 years, just this last year under Trump's administration. The inflation, 3.8% year over year since Trump got in office. We're seeing all of those economic indicators become worse off. Can you tell me anything that he's done to make it better off? You say it's broken for Democrats. It sounds like it's broken right now under Trump.
Have you looked at the stock market?
It's worse off in terms of growth in 2025 as compared to 2024. If you look at Dow Jones and S&P 500.
Yikes! Imagine walking in without rebuttals to things like that. Someone said, hey, give me a metric. What can you tell me numerically that's better? And they're actually right from what I can tell. Like from what I've seen, yeah, inflation was already tailed off by the end of the Biden administration. Did it get really bad? Yes. Did we decrease it? No. Have they more or less maintained consistency from, let's say, December of 24 and January of 25 until like the Trump term in, and then it's gotten worse. So they maintained the level, didn't do much better, and then made it worse. Not as bad as it was previously, but it's way worse because we already were at an elevated level of inflation. It went up 9% under Biden. So yeah, obviously that number was worse, but everything gets more expensive every single month, month on month, over and over again. If this is the person that's defending your ideology, you're cooked. No wonder nobody wants to show up and perform at your stupid concert. It's just, it's not defensible. And it's because they're conflating two things. Love of country as it stands right now because it's so amazing versus love of country, what it was. Here's what's crazy. Make America Great Again, the MAGA agenda, the Agenda 47 that Donald Trump came in on was a nostalgic selling point. America used to be great. We'd like to see it great again. We're going to try to do things that make us more like we were. And then immediately they got in and they were like, it is great because we're here. You've now conflated nostalgia and patriotism. They sold nostalgia, and they are trying to govern with patriotism. Very, very clearly. If you do those things, you are the problem. You're the bait and switch. Donald Trump is a great bait and switch. And if you want to see the reason why it's not going to get any better and why I don't believe that there's actually an election, because number 19 still hasn't been done. And I hone in on these things all the time. Look at this. Look at number 16, by the way. Let's just hone in on a random one that I haven't talked about for months. Cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, gender ideology. How about cut federal funding from the Department of Education, which was actually something they did? It's super specific in here that they want to like hone in against race theory and gender ideology. What I see is there's this push. Donald Trump has tweeted it out. A couple of MAGA accounts have done it. They've been sharing FBI whistleblower testimony from George Hill, who is my friend that I talk to a couple times a week, Garrett O'Boyle, who is currently working for the FBI, who is my friend, who I talk to a couple times a week. They're sharing the stuff that we pointed out under Joe Biden's administration, which was not unique to Joe Biden. It was just that government sucks and it's doing a bad thing. And what they're trying to do, it looks like, again, they sold nostalgia and then they are trying to run the country on patriotism. They're trying to remind you that things were bad. And they're trying to get that energy of when they were in the opposition, because MAGA does not want to be a governing party. Donald Trump doesn't want to be a governing president. He wants to be an opposition figure. He wants to be the guy that complains about the problems without having the solutions. And he said he had solutions and then he wrote them down. And we were like, those are good solutions. You should get rid of all these people. You should deport them and shut down the border. You should do things that pull the money stream back in. It might mean really high rates, and it might mean that inflation goes negative is what it should do. We should try to make America affordable again by deflating the value of the dollar. We should do it by increasing energy production and maybe not starting stupid, pointless wars. We should defend the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our fundamental freedoms. We should increase human liberty in America. That's a great American idea. We should do it by staying out of the Middle East and not having entanglements in Europe. These are all things that Donald Trump said. I didn't say them. That's the whole crazy part about it. Now, when you go sell it and you're awful at it, you put Dave Rubin out there. Again, a homosexual guy married to a homosexual guy. I'll use married in air quotes because I don't think that's a marriage. And when that happens, he's going to go out and he's going to say garbage. And then he's going to insist that he's a liberal. I'll play you the liberal clip in a second. I found this absolutely fascinating, how badly a quote unquote classical liberal MAGA guy, because he is a MAGA guy, he defends Donald Trump by instinct, to have a classical liberal MAGA guy get destroyed by progressive leftists who basically, generally speaking, are not rational people. And these people end him in every single clip that I've seen of this particular show. It shows you how weak your position is.
So tell me, what political concessions have we got with the war with Iran since Trump started it?
Well, right now, Iran literally exports no oil. Every day they are losing $500 million. So what?
We actually covered this last week. If you guys have not seen it, we covered this last week, and they are exporting as much or more to China than they ever have.
What you can do over time is you have a military adventure, which we had 40 days, which we took out their Air Force and their entire Navy and everything else, and now we completely control their economy.
None of those were concerned. What's the political concession since the beginning of the war?
What's the political concession from Iran since the beginning of the war?
Yes, name more.
Well, we're having negotiations with them right now.
And we haven't gotten anything?
We're having negotiations with them right now.
So nothing?
Well, we're in a negotiation process.
We've been in a war for 2.5 months now. We got no political concessions.
A war for 2.5 months? How long do you think wars are supposed to take?
A decade ago, we had a limitation in terms of them enriching uranium to 3.7%. That was going to be in place until 2030. It would still be in place to this day.
We started
the JCPOA.
We started with this. They admitted they were enriching past that point.
After the JCPOA.
Steve Witkoff said 2 or 3 days before the war started that they admitted they were enriching more.
Also, when Trump pulled out of the agreement, and then the original strike that we made a year ago, they haven't been building up since then.
You also have to go on the assumption.
According to DNI,
why is it that you believe? Why would you believe the Iranian theocratic regime? Why would you believe that they are doing right?
That's the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, appointed by Donald Trump. So explain to me why you don't believe her.
Listen, Marco Rubio. Why
don't you believe her?
Marco, hold on.
Why don't you believe the entire?
Completely destroyed by actually citing people from Trump's own cabinet. Also, by the way, those people in the cabinet, they're all leaving. Why are they leaving? Because it's not what they were sold. They were sold nostalgia. They were sold we were going to try to make things better. We were going to go back to a time when things were better. And what did we get? Fake patriotism. And you're either with us or you're against us. Joe Kent, gone. Tulsi Gabbard, on the way out, gone. That kid's better. He's smarter. And by the way, saying that there's no oil leaving Iran and that they're destitute, it's like, what do you think is funding what they're doing? We ran this. The New York Times covered it last week. There's a bunch more. It's insane. But yes, we're going to trade strikes while we have a ceasefire, while we're actually firing at each other so that we can have talks to end the war. And Donald Trump said, we're going to get a great deal. It's going to be the best deal. But no matter what it is, he's already setting up the conditions. No one's going to like the deal when we get it because nothing's ever good.
Because we have more. So we produce now, because of us, we produce more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined ×2. Think of that. We'd double what they do. Add Saudi Arabia and Russia, multiply it ×2, and we're going to be much higher. We're the oil superpower, far greater than even Saudi Arabia, even Russia. But you add them up. These are two big monsters. You add them up, and we double it. We have a great country. We've had tremendous success. We have done things that are unbelievable, and I have tremendous support from Republicans. I mean, I never get support from Democrats. It's a different world than it was. It used to be they'd get together, they'd have lunch, they'd fight a little bit, they'd have bipartisan. I'm not sure that's possible because everything's so different.
Yes, and rather than using the executive power the way that he claimed he was going to do, he's not. So he's trying to kowtow and make them like him, and he's still sucking at everything. By the way, this might be the most trumpety Trump picture visually that you could ever find. And I'm pretty confident that he just made that stuff up when it comes to the oil stats. I don't think those are true. There's a couple of fact checks out there that seem to indicate it's wrong. You have Donald Trump sitting on the left on the screen right now, talking to Laura Trump, his daughter-in-law. So another Trump that wants to be part of the Trump on Fox News, sitting in front of a portrait of Donald Trump. Is there anything more narcissistic, navel-gazing, or full of shit than sitting in front of your own portrait talking to your daughter-in-law on a national news channel who asks nothing, pushes back not at all, who has zero disagreements with what you're saying because all of her wealth and all of her status are 100% contingent on people liking you? It's just so sad to watch it. Because again, the opportunity existed. It was a generational opportunity and it was stolen from us. You could have done something, and I don't know that the 250th would have been exciting to anybody, But I sure as hell know that nobody cares about it. And I have heard zero people say, hey, we should go to Washington, D.C. and celebrate the 250th anniversary of this country. What are you doing for the 250th? I don't have any plans. I don't even know. I know what I'm doing the week afterwards, but I don't know what I'm going to do on July 4th. I can't get myself excited to care. Because what I see is disappointment over and over again. And I'm not alone. Regular people are just not going to be that amped up about it. And it's sad because when I was a kid, I remember people losing their minds for 4th of July. It was awesome. People thought America was the good guy. We were winning. We were on the upside of history. We were beating the Cold War. And now you've got mediocre, third-rate, crappy acts that are all canceling out because it's politicized. It's associated with a Donald Trump navel-gazing, narcissistic episode and has nothing to do with love or celebration of America and values for America because nobody can tell you what America's about. They just can't tell you what are the universal values we all share. What is it that we have in common with our neighbors as Americans? It's not hard to find it if you were to go out there. But we haven't made that a thing. We haven't earned the right to have this celebration, so you're going to end up with garbage. And one of the reasons that we haven't earned this is because we've never gone back and fixed some of the fundamental errors. Let's just kind of hone in real quickly as we finish up for the day, and I'll play you some funny stuff about nothing political, because humor shouldn't be necessarily all political. There was this simple moment. The internet showed up. It offered incredible capabilities. It also offered sexual predators like an unlimited access to kids. Like there was all this evil that came along with it, right? The reason the internet got as big as it did and internet commerce started as big as it did was because of pornography. So it's got some real ugly, evil roots. It showed up with all potential opportunity, but like nobody really looked in how is this going to increase human happiness. The guys from Axios said the next thing that happened was that we had COVID, where they said you must use this technology. It will replace your normal interactions with people. And then the last little bit of it was that we had politics become like a blood sport. And it moves at the pace of media when it is meant to move at the pace of government, which is slow and not very useful. This sin, which is right in the middle, the technology, COVID allowed for the abuse of the technology and the weaponization of it against regular people, and then it like morphed into whatever this sort of garbage is we have right now. This moment never got corrected. We have not fixed the ills. And right now there are numerous stories about how House Democrats and Senate Democrats are starting to try to fight against a January 6th payout system that would go after people or try to make them whole from weaponized government. And a lot of people experience weaponized government. I'm one of them. Many of you are as well. If you worked in a business and you lost your job because of an OSHA mandate that got turned over by our court system because it was never appropriate over COVID, you were a victim of weaponized government. And I'm not trying to tell you like, oh, you're a victim. They created this little slush fund, $1.776 billion. That's not enough to even handle the January 6 families for what went on for them. And a lot of those January 6 families were wronged. Some people fought cops, and yeah, maybe they should have had some bad stuff happen to them. But as somebody who's like going down the rabbit hole again of what happened in 2020, what happened in 21 on January 6th, as I continue to kind of live through that, the beard that I have right now looks a lot like the beard I had when I was in Portland in September of 2020. I realize my mindset is very similar to what I saw as this country felt like it was on the ragged edge in 2020. We didn't fix it. We covered it up. We acted like it didn't happen. In the same way that all those problems that existed in the 90s as they built and they got worse and worse, we didn't fix it. We covered it up with 9/11. There was a huge outgrowth of patriotism after 9/11 because they were like, how dare we united behind a common external enemy? You can't fake us with that shit anymore. So now Americans are looking and saying the enemy is internal. The enemy is actually the government. The enemy is actually the people that are selling the solution. And we don't believe you. And part of it is because you guys did this and nobody ever fixed it.
Fox News, Rupert Murdoch's company, night after night, peddles these incredibly dangerous, poisonous lies about the literally life-saving coronavirus vaccine.
We all know already, right, that if you get vaccinated, That vaccine will basically prevent you from getting sick with COVID. It will prevent you from having to go to the hospital with COVID symptoms. It will prevent you from dying from COVID. Great. Good for you.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person to person, spreading and spreading, sickening some of them, but not all of them, and the ones that it doesn't sicken don't know they have it, and then they give it to even more people because they didn't recognize they were.
If you're vaccinated, you don't have a risk, and that's the reason why we say it's as simple as black and white. You're vaccinated, you're safe. You're unvaccinated, you're at risk. Simple as that.
Right? Instead of the virus being able to hop from person to person to person, potentially mutating and becoming more virulent and drug resistant along the way.
Viruses don't mutate if they don't replicate. So if you stop the transmission and the replication, you're not going to get any more mutations.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
If you're vaccinated, you really don't need to worry about getting it in a way that's serious or transmitting it.
That is true. That is correct, Chris.
A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else. It cannot use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people.
The risk is extremely low of getting infected, of getting sick, or of transmitting it to anybody else. Full stop.
Fox News, Rupert Murdoch's company, night after night, peddles these incredibly dangerous, poisonous lies about the literally life-saving coronavirus vaccine.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person.
Right? That never got fixed. Probably like most of you, I've gotten zero apologies from people who did all of those things. If you guys got an apology, I'd love to hear who it was and what the nature of the apology was, what the situation that occurred and how it came about. Drop me a comment on that. Drop one on Spotify if you're listening on there. Drop one on YouTube. Drop one on Rumble. Thanks for all the watching there. Make sure you guys have liked the video if you're watching right now. How many of us got an apology? I got family members who might listen to this, might actually hear this, that refuse to see us. I have family members that have never once asked, what happened to you when you lost your job? Like, why don't you have that job that you had? You spent 10 years working towards a profession. You don't get to work in that anymore. Like, what was that all about? You remember when you were homeless and you were unemployable and you had to create something? Like, we created this podcast out of nothing. Not because I was like, oh, you know what Seraphin wants to do? I want to be like Dave Rubin one day. I want to have a podcast. I want to have a produced, beautiful set. I want to sit in a studio space and I want to go and I want to talk bullshit to people for a living. I never once had that interest. Not once. What I had was somebody came in and did something and I had no recourse. The only recourse that I could think of was this old power that I remember from when my dad was in media. And media used to be a force for good on occasion. It was always, like a potential place to lie. But we've gone through it. And one day I'll have my dad come on and tell the stories of some of the power of the media. We've had U.S. service members rescued from really, really evil, diabolical, crazy stuff. We've had people, have political outcomes that were not possible if not for the exposure and the shame that we were able to provide through media. And I saw that. I saw there was a power in the media. There was kind of an ethos of trying to destroy evil by exposing that evil and making it face itself and it not being willing to do so. That was the one thing that I knew that you could do with media if you were smart about it. And unlike anybody I've ever seen before, when it came to like government whistleblowing, because you won't see this, guys, it's not a thing. Generally speaking, if you speak out against the government, they just turn around and crush you, like my friend Garrett said. I had a lady with the audacity on True Social this weekend to say the only reason that Garrett O'Boyle is in the space that he's in right now is because he put his absolute trust in God. and nobody else that were part of the suspended FBI agents did. And I was like, woman, F you. F you. The reason that the O'Boyle family is able to go to work in the government today is because my family laid on the barbed wire. And I don't think you would find Garrett even remotely resisting that concept. I decided to sacrifice my anonymity, which was something I really, really prize. We sacrificed anonymity, and I'm doing my best to keep my kids out of this. Like, you guys want to hear about my son in the tracksuit, and it's super funny. Like, yeah, my kid is the most adorable. I have the most adorable 5-year-old son you've ever seen. There are no people that meet him that are not wanting to take him home. Old women want to adopt him as a grandchild. Young women want to take him home as their son. Teenage women want to hang out with him because he's super cute. He's the ultimate wingman for like a single guy. He could go to the park and just like go sit next to a pretty lady, like the prettiest lady in the whole park, put his hand on her leg and start talking to her. And they would be like, this is an adorable little boy wearing a freaking Russian gangster tracksuit. I want to know what this little silly boy has to say. And he gets super animated about all kinds of funny stuff. And he's wearing a tiny little denim backpack. It's adorable. I won't show you my children the way that a Betty Johnson would, the way that a David Rubin would. I won't show you my kids because it's the only thing that I can protect is their anonymity. But I don't have mine anymore. It's the reason why you've rarely ever seen my wife. A couple of people may have seen her at America Fest. There's a picture that runs around every once in a while. My wife's beautiful. She's brilliant. She's the other half that lets this thing happen. And I protect them. But like, I've had to step up there and be a public face that I don't want to be. Some of you guys had to advocate at your city council meetings, at your school board meetings. You had to step up. You had to speak out about something that was unjust, and you had to put a target on yourself. You've experienced this in a smaller way, probably, than I have, but you've had the same experience. We have that in common. And nobody ever came and said, you know what, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry that I made you do something when all you wanted to do is be left the hell alone. You just wanted to live the America that you remember. You wanted to see the America made great again, which was like, leave me the hell alone. Stop making it all about politics. Govern for all Americans, not govern for like partisan bullshit. But we're so divided. Nobody's ever looked at trying to like do the healing part of it. So of course you're going to find people that are going to resist showing up for the 250th celebration because nobody has anything to celebrate. We are not the same country. We are so radically divided that nobody has ever put any work into fixing it. They've just declared Trump's in, the MAGA golden era is back. We're so back, baby. It's on. It's not. You don't get to claim victory without having actually won. It reminds me of one of the funniest moments I had with one of my best buddies where he would say something or he would do something and I'd be like, dude, I can't believe you just did that. And he would go, dude, I said I'm sorry. And I go, oh, okay. But he never once apologized. It was a really funny little bit we would do. He would do something. I would be like, hey, man, you did this thing. And then he would say, I said I'm sorry as a stand-in for actually saying sorry. The Trump administration told you they were going to make America great again. And then they were like, it's great again. But they never actually made it great again. And there's all the evidence behind it. There's no numerical evidence. Like you bring it up to a freaking progressive live and Dave Rubin, MAGA mouthpiece, can't even figure it out. He can't tell you one thing that fixes it. So the internet was obviously a part of it. That COVID rift happened. This is what Axios is arguing today in their lead article, and I don't think they're wrong. And the last thing is politics became a blood sport where we're not reunited. We don't have the same values in politics. But in reality, if we were to take it back down to the local level, you'd find that a lot of people in your community tend to agree. You're going to find more people that are going to stand up and fight against data centers. You're going to have a whole meeting full of it. You might have a city council that doesn't agree with it because there's a lot of money involved, but you're going to find the people that show up and care have the similar values. They want to be left alone. They want you to leave their private property. They want to keep more of their own money. They want to make their most free choices. And that would be something to celebrate if we had actually gotten back to that in the last 18 months, in the last 2 years. We just haven't. And claiming victory before you get there, it's the most Donald Trump thing you can do. Cover a turd with gold, but it doesn't make it gold. So that's a classic military sort of analogy. Polish this turd up. Sad stuff. Should we do something funny? How about stuff that are like just like the regular weird things that we think about? I'm sure we'll have a lot of heaviness to go into this week, but I grabbed a bunch of fun stuff. I showed this to my wife as we were leaving church yesterday. And it's like, I just want to hang out with normal people who look at the world and have curiosity and say funny things about it. We used to be able to do stuff like that. This is the most unpolitical thing that you'll ever find, a discussion of cheese. And how the hell did we eat that? I have these conversations all the time with people like, who the hell decided to eat lobsters? How hungry were you to go and eat that underwater monster? Like, why did you think that you were going to apply heat to this thing and then try it? Why did you grab those weeds or those roots or whatever and think like, yeah, that's probably tasty. Maybe I can boil it up and smash it. Like, all the things that we eat, I think, are fascinating. Cheese is no different. So we're going to do a quick palate cleanse about that. Before you go, make sure you've liked on Rumble if you have not done already. Subscribe to the channel, Rumble and YouTube, if you don't mind for me. I'd love it. Give us a like on YouTube. And follow us on Spotify if you've not done so already as a backup option. You never know when we might get nuked on one of these live streams. So let's talk about cheese. Should we put it in everything? Do we love cheese? I do, actually. I eat all kinds of cheese. I've got some Wisconsin in my blood. So if my dad's from there, it's a cheese type of place. Let's ask some questions, though. I feel like we should.
Wait, why pour it out? What if I fucked with it? Did a bunch of weird experiments and bullshit to it. Let it sit out for days. No, months. No, years. I'll cut myself off from the world. They won't understand. They're not ready. I could try it with skim, whole, 2%. So many permutations, so many possible outcomes. What if I separated the chunky parts from the liquid parts and messed around with the temperature and shit? Everybody knows that milk plus time equals gross. But what if you pushed past that? What if it gets good again? What if it gets better than milk? What if there's something past butter? But what? I feel like I'm reaching out in the darkness to grab something I can't see, but I'm afraid of what I'll find. Day 44. First cheese. It smells extremely weird and made me shit 3 times. My body isn't built to handle it. No one's is. The only logical thing to do is put it in every dish there is on Earth.
So dumb. That was a uniquely man thing, by the way. There are no ladies out there that are like holding on to cheese for an extra 45 or 50 days or gross milk. Sorry for those of you that didn't know that we were going to do a palate cleanse that sometimes involves unexpected swear words. What I always find out is like when watching the chat, people will be like, I was playing that at work and you didn't get a warning. Yeah, you're right. That was my bad. I'll take that on. Tell your clients, tell your patients, tell your children that I'm sorry. There's some really weird things that get done in the world. There's some great progress that gets done because people just step into a weird idea, darkness, and so on, right? And if we ask questions about it and we actually do a little presentation on it, you realize just how ridiculous it must have been to get into that space. If you go through that, that's one of my favorite things about the internet is people making skits about their rants in their mind that they've always wondered about. Yeah, that's one of the good things. It turns out we can usually agree on things like humor. And there's nothing I will get more comments on than my thoughts on food. Like, I'm like, I don't like seafood. Guys, sound off on your thoughts. Everybody's like, seafood's amazing. Like, seafood's garbage. I can't believe it. Like, Jesus ate seafood. Like, you're not Christian if you don't eat seafood. Everybody has an opinion about the most mundane things. We've turned that into things that are actually really, really important, and it's super scary to watch because most people don't know anything about the stuff that they have big, big, strong opinions on, as proven by Dave Rubin today. So there you have it. I will put a little link if you guys want to see the cheese guy, if you want to follow him. I have no idea what other things he talks about, but I found that out of the blue. The fact that he did it in a Batman voice made it for me. Put your comments. I get a lot on the palate cleanses. You guys stick around and then you comment only on the one thing that is not like related to the rest of the show, but that's okay. Thanks for being with us. I hope you guys have a great Monday. I hope it starts off okay. We're going to continue to follow whatever's happening out there in the world. I've got a bunch of other clips that we're going to be out there. We're going to talk about James Tallarico and the status of how I know I'm not voting my way out of it. Tomorrow's show, I guarantee you we will touch on the following. My choices for Senate in Texas are an effeminate Christian heretical weirdo who's 37 years old and a baby boomer adulterer attorney who's been inside politics for a long time. There are no notes to this sort of thing. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a great one. God bless you. Talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.